Perfect. Well, let's get started, everyone. And I'd like to start by thanking everyone for joining us live today. It sounds like we've got some good attendance from all around the world. This is our roundtable discussion on the Cayman post-COVID landscape for technology. And first of all, I just want to introduce my colleague, Claire Murray, who's Technology Recruitment Specialist here at CML. And our distinguished panel members in no particular order, starting with my good friend, Charlie Kirkconnell, CEO at Cayman Enterprise City. Charlie, I think you need to make a noise so that if we're on speaker view, people get to see you when I...
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Sure.
How's that?
Petri Basson, Director of KPMG's Digital Asset Team here in the Cayman Islands.
Hi guys, thanks Steve.
Ryan Watson, Head of IT for a global technology firm, Brave Software.
Hello.
And last but by no means least, my new friend, James Packer, General Manager, Cayman's largest on-island IT service provider, Kirk ISS.
Hi, thanks Steve.
And please don't anyone adjust your sets at home. I know this, it looks as if we're joining from a time warp from the 1970s. Our haircuts are from the 1970s, but I can assure you that it's very much 2020 here in the Cayman Islands. I want to start the discussion with you, Ryan, if it's okay, because your company is relatively new to Cayman, and Brave Software is kind of a case study for the kind of inward investment that Cayman can attract from the tech sector. Can you tell us a bit more about Brave and the story of how you came to be here in the Cayman Islands?
Sure, yeah. So as you said, I'm Ryan Watson, Director of IT and Infrastructure at Brave Software. Brave Software is part of the Rebel Alliance, so I need to change my background real quick. There we go. Okay. So yeah, Brave Software is a software company. We have a web browser that blocks ads and trackers. That's kind of like the big selling point for our browser. If you download it at brave.com, since I have a pedestal to give my shout out at the moment. So go check that out. And the browser has a token built into it that basically rewards users for browsing the web. Brave was founded in 2015. We set up in Cayman in 2017. And although it's a fairly new company, our leadership is made up of tech juggernauts like Brendan Ike, who co-founded Firefox. He also invented JavaScript, which is the most used programming language in the world. For those of you who don't know. I arrived on Ireland in 2018 from Vancouver, Canada, but as you can tell from my thick Canadian accent, I am not Canadian. I'm originally from the UK. And that's basically how that all happened, basically how I got here.
So talk me through the decision that the company went through before you decided to set up an office here in Cayman. Was it a difficult decision? Any dissenting voices in the room?
Not really. You know, when we got into the utility token cryptocurrency kind of space, it was all very new. There wasn't any regulatory frameworks, and we wanted to be very sure that we were doing it properly. As for my decision to come here, I kind of just went to dinner with the CEO and said, "Hey, so what's the deal with the Cayman Islands?" And he's like, "Would you like to go?" And I was like, "Yep." And then within 2 months, I was chatting to Charlie, and then a month later, I was on a plane over here. So no voices telling me not to come here. I'm definitely a sun dweller, so perfect spot for me.
Does your browser reward people for playing online video games like Roblox?
So how it actually works is we have an opt-in system where you can opt into what's called Brave Rewards, and we will send you very personalized ads. Now you're kind of thinking, why do we block ads and trackers? Well, the thing is, you actually get paid for viewing these ads, and 70% of the revenue from those ads comes to the user and go straight into your browser, which you can then use to either tip websites, content creators, or you can buy gift cards through our partnerships through like Tap and various other networks, or you can just cash it out and have cash. So it's kind of reinventing the way the web is used and the monetization method. That's
awesome. I'm going to install it on my children's computer as soon as I go home, and maybe they'll finally start carrying some of the weight.
Well, the great thing about it is you can download it on iPhone and Android, and by default we block ads and trackers, so it saves your data plan. You can watch YouTube without any ads. So in terms of for kids, that's a big selling.
Oh wow, yeah, awesome. And so, and what do you think? I mean, you've obviously been here for a couple of years now, and you're a client of Cayman Enterprise City. What do you think is the biggest obstacle for? I mean, for 10 years, I've been wondering why the world isn't beating a path to the door of the Cayman Islands, and I know Cayman Enterprise City's done very well in that regard, and you know, it's growing year after year after year. But I'm still surprised it's not. You know, there isn't a Google campus in Cayman Brac. What's holding people back?
Yeah, I mean, we have high-speed internet. We have good infrastructure. Most engineers just need a dark room, AC, and internet, like to get by. So I would say for most startups, cost is a big one. I think their philosophy in the startup world is fail fast, and they tend to have shoestring budgets. CC's definitely making good progress on this, but I would love to see like a startup initiative where it can be ultra cheap, and that fail fast methodology can be held here as well. And I think tech conferences as well. If we could attract some of the big tech conferences over here, because we have the hospitality area, we have the hotels, things like DEF CON I go to every year has, you know, tens of thousands of attendees over multiple hotels in Vegas. Why can't they do it here?
Yeah, right. I spoke to a software firm that was headquartered in Boston a few years ago, and they pointed out that in the early years of a startup, it's actually a problem not to have tax. So obviously we're tax-free here in the Cayman Islands. There's no corporation tax and no income tax, which is fantastic if you're making a profit. But it's actually not a good thing if you're making a loss, because the losses are giving you carry forward tax credits. So maybe we should introduce a tax just so that we can have tax credits for companies that are making a loss in the early years. Claire.
Yes. So Charlie, like, I'd like to bring you into the discussion a little bit, because there's probably nobody in Cayman who's done more for inward investment and learn more about the challenges that you have in the last 9 years since CEC was born. So I was wondering, how do you think the pandemic will have changed the inward investment landscape for Cayman?
Well, you know, as I think you'll know, and certainly as we try to remind people of, you know, especially lately, our project was born in the aftermath of the 2008 global financial crisis for the very purpose of helping Cayman deal with an event like this pandemic. And so, you know, the two main ways are by, you know, creating some economic diversity away from such a heavy reliance on financial services and tourism, but also by attracting foreign direct investment that is not so reliant on those two sectors. So, you know, we feel as though now is the chance, you know, now is our chance to really prove our worth and to prove, you know, kind of that this is why we exist, and to make sure that, you know, we show that the government's strategy of greenlighting our project was the right one. As far as what we're seeing happening, you know, well, demand over the last, you know, 10 years, as you mentioned, has been, we've had our challenges through the years, but we've always been on a positive trajectory. And you know, what we're seeing even through this pandemic is that the demand for setting up in Cayman remains very, very strong. And in fact, we're finding that many of the people that we're speaking with, they seem to be more determined than ever, you know, to get set up here. Before we went live, we were talking a little bit about one of the clients that you know, Steve was very kind to introduce to us, and you know, trying to keep up with how fast he wants to get things done and get rolling and get located in Cayman. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we really enjoy.
Yeah, when you're starting a business, you want everything done now, right?
Yeah. And that's what we're here to do. That's really important to our clients. The concessions are important, and the benefits granted by the government, but getting things done on a timely basis and you know, quickly and efficiently, this is people, well, they love that. You know, one thing I'll say is that I thought I was going to have a lot of time during this pandemic to kind of do some deal with some internal matters, improve our product a little bit, and I've done a lot of that. but a lot of my time has been spent with dealing with new business inquiries and helping clients get through the licensing process. And overall, I think there's what we see is a lot of pent up energy that is just waiting to be unleashed. And I think the brightest days for technology focused inward investment are definitely ahead of us.
Brilliant. That's really, really positive to hear. And I'd like to ask James, so you've had a very, very varied career spanning across a lot of different executive roles across the States and Europe. And I wanted to ask you just to give your assessment, first of all, of the level of sophistication in Cayman's tech scene, but also the quality of that infrastructure. So like, what do you see as the main challenges and the main opportunities? And do you think that these have shifted at all throughout the pandemic or because of the pandemic?
Sure, yeah, good question. It has changed a lot. When I came to Ireland 2.5 years ago, not many people use the cloud and things like that, and we got steady growth. More and more financial institutions, and places like that started using the cloud more. But since like the COVID outbreak, that has accelerated exponentially to the point where we've moved as many people to the cloud in the last 6 months as we did in the 2 years before that, with things like what people wanted to work from home with Windows Virtual Desktop, deciding that their company is a lot more flexible if they use a model that's a cost per user rather than buy a large infrastructure to run the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some interesting challenges as well.
That was always our disaster recovery plan. Was pick up your laptops and go wherever you need, wherever you're safe.
Yes, and a lot of people here, know the great thing about a work from home attitude is people are actually finding as well, when they look at their reports and look at what people are doing, more hours are being worked. Mm-hmm. So people are genuinely doing more work from home than they ever did in the office. There's less meetings, less distractions. Meetings tend to be shorter and more focused. And also people tend to work longer days at home.
Okay, so some good and some bad then. It's good for the employers and everybody's more productive. So that's good to hear. Yeah. And Petri, so I know you've worn a lot of hats in your career. Your focus these days seems to be very much on the digital asset space. So I'd like to get your insights into these issues from the perspective of digital assets specifically. So first of all, because this sector, it's moving very, very quickly. It's hard to keep up with everything. So can you tell me a little bit more about your role specifically in KPMG as director, and perhaps give me a bit more of an oversight of the emerging sector as well, please?
Yeah, sure. It's a very big sector, so it's difficult to wrap it all up. At KPMG, what I can say is we've been working with these assets almost 4 years now. It's been amazing to see the entire industry mature. You're seeing the exchanges, the custodians, all those kinds of things that you're used to in a traditional setting mature a lot. Personally, we've also put a lot of effort and a lot of work into it, developing our own audit methodology, developing tools internally to be able to do these types of audits. So I'd say we've seen in KPMG and then broader a lot of maturization in the space. And for cryptocurrencies, digital assets in general, you're seeing that a lot now as well. We've seen some of the large venture funds now buying up to a third of all the new Bitcoins minted. I recently saw a EU bank saying that they're moving onto a stable token for all of their transfers. They're not going to be using Swift anymore. So you're seeing more and more adoption with these types of assets. Great projects like Brave that are doing very interesting things. DeFi at the moment, which is decentralized finance, is also very interesting. We're seeing those projects develop a lot. And I see Cayman as actually being key in all of that, because all of these organizations are international. You can use them anywhere in the world, and they're very decentralized. So it makes a lot of sense for them to set up in Cayman, be domiciled here and operating everywhere.
And Petri, I'm curious. This is when you talk about digital assets, I'm thinking of blockchain-based technology and ICOs and cryptocurrencies. Can you give us a sense of the size of this sector and how it breaks down? Because I don't know if are we talking about 10 entities or 10,000? I really have no idea.
So I think the last time I looked at CoinMarketCap, if you look on there, just in terms of how many different tokens there are, it's somewhere in the range of 1,500 different tokens. Now, a lot of those are not genuine projects, not actually running. If I'm thinking, I mean, I'm not sure what the market cap of Bitcoin is at the moment, but if I'm thinking about something like decentralized finance, that just went over $1 billion of assets locked up over there. So what that is loans, for example, where you're putting up collateral in something like Ethereum, which is a cryptocurrency, and then you can get cash back into your pocket that you can use to do whatever. So those types of projects are seeing a lot of adoption. So the industry is into the billions at the moment, but what's really interesting about it, I think PwC published a report a while ago where they were talking about the crypto fund space, and their report said that from 1 year to the next, they've seen it gone from 1 billion to 2 billion. So in 1 year, you've seen 100% growth. So the growth rate is what's really interesting over here.
Yeah, right. And so what would be an example of what you described as DeFi? DeFi, was it? What can you? Is there a company that I would know that's an example of that?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there. Can you repeat that one?
I was wondering if there always seem to be having some internet issues. Oh. Hi, Petri. Well, I don't know if the internet issues are my end or yours. But... All right, looks like they might be both. So why don't I hand over to Claire, and then I'll come back to concluding that discussion.
That sounds like a good idea, Steve. So I wanted to ask Ryan a little bit more, as an executive at a tech firm with a presence right across the globe and global reach. Is that echo coming from me as well?
It's Petri, he needs to mute.
Okay, hopefully it's okay. Anyway, so Ryan, can you speak a little bit of how the global economic conditions might impact Cayman's growth as a tech hub in the future?
Sure. I mean, we're extremely lucky in this sector, as James was saying, about the growth and everyone going remote. Technology has really stepped up to the plate for the future, and we can see that this is the future now, isn't it? This is how we're going to work. And outside of the transport and tourism technology-focused companies like Uber and Airbnb, we're seeing explosive growth. So I think we'll see a lot more people working remotely. This might not necessarily be from their houses. If we can provide high-speed internet and hubs from Cayman, we might see people, rather than working from home, working from beach. You know, as an employer, I have no problem where my employees are, as long as they're getting their work done and they're checking in for meetings. I think this is the future, to be honest. And I think the economy for the tech sector is only just getting started. I think it's going to see a massive explosion.
Great. Well, I don't think anybody's going to have any issue with working from the beach if that's the way forward. But so what would your take on that be, Petri?
I'd say I agree 100%. So, I mean, I've got clients I deal with where they also do not have physical offices, and this was a year ago. And these are all very substantial companies. I think COVID, I think a lot of us have seen the meme where they've said the biggest enforcer of digital change in my company, CFO, CIO, or COVID. And COVID has actually forced a lot of companies to make that change and see what they can do remotely, realize that they can trust their people. And I think what we alluded to earlier is we are seeing people are being more productive, sort of getting a lot more done, spending more time, and then also being at home. So you actually get a little bit of that quality of life when you figure it out. I mean, in the beginning, it's tricky. You're not used to it. And I think lots of companies see the cost benefits as well. You're not renting expensive office space, etc. So on the startup side, but also big corporates. I mean, there's lots of big corporates now talking about going the same route.
Yeah, we're one. Did everyone see the article in the Wall Street Journal today that said, if you can work from anywhere, why work from here? And it was basically making that exact point, to say, why is everyone crammed into cities when if we're working from home and working from anywhere, then you can decide where your home is, and you can decide where your office is. So I totally agree.
No, definitely. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are watching this now and are kind of thinking from all over the world, they wouldn't mind being here in Cayman. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about what it's like to like live and work here and kind of people's perspective on that. So Ryan, starting with you as someone who has been here in Cayman now for a couple of years, you've got you're well established, got your feet firmly under the rug, as they say. What is your experience been of living here in Cayman, and has it lived up to your expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a choice for me to come here. I asked to move here.
Yeah.
I have no plans to leave. I'll stay here as long as the Caymanian people will have me, and I plan to contribute as much as I can to the tech sector. I think we're going to see explosive growth here. Cayman's been very welcoming, and I'm just excited for the future, especially in the tech space.
Brilliant.
And so what would you see as the main advantages? So you lived in Vancouver before Cayman. How would you contrast them? Vancouver's a beautiful city, actually. So it's probably one of the top places for quality of life. But how would you sell Cayman to someone from Vancouver if that's necessary?
There's no beaches like the beaches here, and the people are so friendly, and the business networks you get from having a small island is so different and so welcome, in my opinion. As an example, you know, if you want to get something done here, you can just go drive to their office, which would be 10 minutes, and shake someone's hand. Well, not now, but maybe in a couple of months, and get to know that person, and the business relationships you build. It's fantastic being in that small environment.
Yeah, and I'd imagine, especially in a place like Cayman Enterprise City, where it's a hub for tech, and you couldn't be in a better place to mix with other people in the industry sector.
Yeah, I think what I kind of see as a future for this is people will work remote, but there's always going to need to be a human connection. You're going to need to have meetings in person, and I think CEC is going to have a huge role in that. The tech companies will meet there. They'll have their meetings in face-to-face, and then they'll go home and do their work. And it will just be a constant transient back and forth of people using the meeting rooms, having calls, and doing business.
And Petri, you've been here just a bit longer than Ryan, but I don't think you've been here as long as I have. I'm part of the furniture. I've been here almost 20 years now. But what's your take on this? Sounds like you're from South Africa originally. Is that right? And what's your take? How long have you been on Ireland, and what's your take?
So I'm actually going on 6 years, and I'm the snow and boat, so absolutely love it over here. I think one of the things for me that was surprising is you think you're coming to a small island, but I was amazed with how much there is to do over here. I mean, sports-wise, so South African stats rugby, there's soccer, there's just a lot to do actually over here. We've got our movie theaters, Canal Bay, those kinds of things for everyone. So that was actually very good. I've got friends in other islands very close to here, and they always complain that there's nothing to do, there's no social activities, all those kinds of things. And then I'll echo what Ryan has said. That's one of the things I really enjoyed over here is how, I mean, you know a lot of the people that you sit across from in a boardroom, you'll actually know them in a personal capacity as well. In South Africa, for example, it's so big, you never know anyone really. So over here, you've got those personal relationships. It is that small town feeling, but you've got very massive exposure over here.
Absolutely. And maybe we could go back to that discussion that we got, the internet broke up on us before, but I'm still sort of trying to get my head around the digital asset space. And I know one of the big things, so I was asking you about for if there's an example of I think you described it as DeFi, is that what? Is that? And so what's that again? And what would an example of, is there a company that I might have heard of that's doing this? Or is this cutting edge stuff?
The biggest project at the moment in DeFi is something called Maker. Maker issue a token that is linked to the US dollar. So it's one-to-one with the US dollar. And what they're doing is you can pretty much think them as a central bank, but a central bank where it's completely transparent. And everything is actually backed by other tokens. So we don't have to go into how money works and all those kinds of things, but you can think about this as a bank where you can see exactly where all the money is, you can see how it's backed, and you can also see exactly how it works. Maker, for example, have different things built in as safety mechanisms. So what I'll do is I'll give you my Ethereum, and then I'll get the token back, and then I can go use that token in different other projects. So one other project, for example, is called Compound, and it's called Compound because it's a lending service. So what I can do on Compound is I can take that US dollar token, I can deposit it with them and get a return on it. And when you're looking at the returns you're getting on these types of products, you're getting 1%, 2%, which doesn't sound that great, but in a negative interest rate environment we're heading towards, those kinds of returns start looking much more appealing. So it's traditional financial centers, so traditional systems that you can think about, but all of that done on a blockchain. So it's got all the benefits of very low costs, a lot of transparency. It happens instantaneously. So all of the things we all like to complain about in the traditional financial system, my loan takes 2 months to approve, I have to wait until Monday morning for it to happen, all those kinds of things have been taken out of the picture.
Yeah, right. And last year, I was traveling a lot and I started using Revolut, which I thought was unbelievable. Is Revolut going to take over? I mean, they're growing rapidly, but you know that these are sort of, I think Revolut's a virtual bank. Is that right? They're sort of, you know, they don't have any. I've never spoken to a person at Revolut. I've been using it for almost 18 months now. Never spoken to a person at Revolut, and never had any issues. And you just kind of upload your AML documentation. You take a picture of it, and you chat with someone about the questions, and they've got. So I mean, what's stopping Revolut from just taking over the world and putting brick and mortar banks out of business?
I agree with you on that one. So I think that's exactly what we're going to see. Is we're going to see the similar type of organizations like that take over as people get used to using them. I mean, chip and pin cards is a good example. It's just people, the sort of old infrastructure going out, and then people realizing how easy it is to use these kinds of things. I mean, I've got someone that I know, they don't use Swift at all anymore. So they'll just buy a cryptocurrency, which is backed one-to-one with US dollars, because they had a situation where they had to pay someone in China. It was over a bank holiday. The guys in China weren't going to start production until they received the money, and then it's a wire that takes 2 days. So that ended up taking something like 5 or 6 days for the money to get there. And because of that situation, they decided to do it that way once, where they bought the token that's backed one-to-one with US dollars, sent the money over within a few minutes, and now they're only using that. So it's exactly that efficiency that's going to get people to start using it.
Wow. So this is a big double-edged sword for Cayman, right? Because it's an opportunity if we're at the center of it and we're kind of disrupting the financial services industry around the rest of the world, but it's also a threat to Cayman's banking industry, not just the brick and mortar stuff, but the institutional stuff. Do you see it that way? And I know that the regulations have kind of struggled to keep up, and it's changing so fast that that's perennially a problem. So what's your assessment of Cayman's place in the regulatory landscape right now? Are we keeping up, or are we at the trailing edge?
I think the regulations are actually a very big opportunity. So in Cayman, we recently released our new virtual asset service provider bill. So what's very good about that bill is it is fully compliant with all of the FATF's new requirements. I mean, we've all seen other jurisdictions also bring out their specific legislation, but everyone is going to have to get to that FATF standard eventually. So I'm sure a lot of them are also working to update that, and we're already at that point where we're fully compliant. So for any organization that wants to come over here, that's a big plus point, because there is that clarity. So you know where you stand with the regulations, you know how it's going to work. I think the two other big positives for that regulation is that we've got a license now for cryptocurrency exchanges as well as custodians. So that licensing is a very big positive as well. You've seen in the US, for example, some companies actually searching out being licensed because they want that legitimacy to be able to say they're licensed somewhere and there is an oversight body, because that's part of the maturization of this entire space. So you want to see them having the right SOC reports, being regulated, all those kinds of things, because then everyone starts getting more comfortable with the space and starts moving into it. And I think the only thing we need to focus on in Cayman is to make sure we keep up with those trends.
Yeah, right.
So I think at the moment we're very well positioned for the future.
And are you seeing regular companies do tokenized share classes right now? Because that seems to be one of the most beneficial applications that any company could benefit from. It doesn't matter whether you're a technology, even a technology company. There's no real reason you couldn't tokenize a share class and then do away with all this shareholder register stuff and make it a lot easier to move shares around. Is that already happening?
Yeah, so there's quite a few companies working on that. I haven't personally actually worked with it, but I know a lot of the companies that are working on it. And it's exactly that. I mean, a lot of companies at the moment, the share register is an Excel sheet that someone forgets to update every now and again. And with the blockchain, it's really immutable. You can go, you can see exactly who owns what, you can see how it's been transacted. And there's very nice solutions at the moment. I think the one thing that is holding a lot of things back at the moment is just that user interface to make it really easy. Being tech guys, the tech guys are focused on making it very secure, very valid, etc. But they haven't made it pretty for just normal folks to be able to use. And we're seeing a lot of companies working on that, getting that in there, and then tying it up with the KYC, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, right. James, can you just quickly explain to us how the blockchain works? I'm only kidding.
Yeah.
I'm only kidding. I'm sure you could. I don't doubt it for a second, but it would probably take half an hour on a whiteboard. So let's skip that one.
It kind of works. They have a lot of screens in their offices every time I go to somebody who deals with it. Especially in Cayman Enterprise City, you see many people with 6 or 9 screens on one computer.
Wow. Well, it's grist for the mill for a company like yours, James. What's your take on the? I mean, you've got a very technology background, as Claire said earlier. What's your take on this space as just a technophile, if I may say?
I think it's spectacular here because the biggest thing here is the world's top people tend to be good earners as well in the IT space. And one of the advantages in Cayman is not paying tax on your salary. So, for instance, some of the people that you guys are finding us from Europe, like my service delivery manager, my head of software development, who came from a large law firm, they can command a salary that doesn't have a big tax implication. Because, for instance, the same security guy I have out of London would have to pay 45% tax in London. So what tends to happen is the quality of the people I have working for me is much higher per head than I've had anywhere in the world.
And that is a big part of our job, actually, to persuade companies. And obviously, over the years we've been involved in discussions with early stage companies from Cayman Enterprise City that have been looking to move to Cayman, and it's one of the questions they always have is what's the local supply of talent like? And I know Cayman Enterprise City's done a ton of work in the local community to try and exploit the opportunities presented by this new tech sector. Could you speak a little bit to that, Charlie, and how that's going and where you think the opportunities are and what we need to do as a community to kind of enhance those opportunities for Caymanians?
Yeah, well, I mean, some of the things that we've done through the years, we have an internship program, we have a new mentorship program, and a lot of it is connecting young Caymanians with people who have pursued a career in technology and have been successful and can kind of say, well, this is how I did it. Maybe this is something. This is kind of how maybe you can do it as well. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. We regularly get into the schools. Ryan has attended a few of these, and spoken with some of the kids about careers in tech and what that can look like, and really just kind of laying the groundwork for getting people interested at a young age. We do things. We're involved in STEM camps and getting the kids to do some hands-on stuff, together with tech professionals. Some other things that we've been working on is we launched something called Cayman Code Academy, which right now ultimately we want to offer in-person an in-person Code Academy type training opportunities for people on island. Right now it's not possible to do it in person, and we are working with a company called Code Fellows, which is based in Seattle. They moved everything that they do to online. And so we are working with a group of people, local people who are interested in pursuing a career in tech, assisting them with their tuition on a need-based. We're applying a need-based plan, and all of it is really just aimed at creating that groundswell of the future future tech professionals, available here in Cayman for projects that are interested in coming to Cayman to basically select from. And some of the things that have happened through the years, we've had conversations with people that are interested in moving into Cayman, but they've said to us, we need to be able to hire the talent where we set up. And Cayman is not one of those places right now. So it's a very important part of our project, and it's very important to the future of our project. But of course, it's also very, very important to all of the things that we've been talking about, basically creating a globally significant technology hub here in Cayman. And we enjoy doing it, but of course it's we have a more, it's a moral imperative for us to do it, but it also is it's part of the fun of building something, is creating opportunities for others and seeing how that actually benefits them and benefits Cayman as well.
You're right. Well, I'm happy to say that your efforts to increase the interest in technology are definitely working in my house. I've got a couple of young Caymanians at home who could not be more interested in tech. If for the last 2 months they've probably done not much else for 16 hours a day or thereabouts. But I wanted to just go back to James, because you've also been here for a few years now. What's your take now that are your feet under the rug? How would you pitch it to prospective to people who are thinking about relocating?
I think you have to, with any relocation, because I've worked in a lot of jurisdictions, you have to have an understanding partner to understand that when you move and you change jobs, you have to put effort in to succeed, like anything you do in life. But here's been one of the most...
You must have a very understanding partner.
It's one of the most welcoming places ever, and also, for instance, there is some excellent talent on island. As I mentioned a minute ago, my head of software development, actually Gianna, she's from Cayman Brac. But what grew her into spectacular, what she did is she worked her way through places like Deloitte and then a global law firm, and then come to join us. And there is talent and there is people that want effort. But the thing is you have to help to cultivate it as well. Within my team, for instance, I've managed Kirk Office brand itself is about 80-90% Caymanians, but Kirk ISS is only 1/3. So we're trying to grow the technology industry with training and that. So.
And it always takes time, and I think ironically, in the meantime, we've kind of got access to this global talent pool. Whenever I speak to prospective tenants of Cayman Enterprise City and they're concerned about the talent pool here, I always make the point that you couldn't have access to a bigger talent pool than we have in the Cayman Islands, because it's basically everyone on the planet. Until such time as we have the local supply, there's not much not to like about moving to the Cayman Islands, and you're actually offering something different to your competitors. And when you're trying to attract tech talent, and Claire sees that day in, day out, no shortage of talent that wants to relocate to the Cayman Islands. If anything, we've got too much. We just, that's kind of not the problem we have. So Claire, what's your stock pitch to skeptical candidates that part of your job is obviously headhunting people out of the blue and calling them up and saying, hey, how would you feel about working in the Cayman Islands? How do you cope with their reaction, and what's your standard pitch?
Yeah. So I suppose it's definitely not the most difficult pitch in the world, to be honest. I'm just very, very honest with all candidates who come to me and kind of let them know the pros and the cons of making a move. I always encourage anybody, when I reach out to people initially, a lot of people, to be honest, have never considered the Cayman Islands. because for technology specifically, it's not something that they will have ever really came across, depending on which jurisdiction they're in. So the first thing I will always do is just kind of encourage them to do the research, like, you know, get them to talk to some people who are here. And I suppose also the biggest thing really is letting them know that they're not sacrificing their career by moving to somewhere like Cayman, because sometimes some candidates will think, okay, I'm moving to the Caribbean, like they're a little bit worried about, you know, they don't want to sacrifice their career for the sake of living somewhere so beautiful. But when they can kind of see the opportunities that are here and look into the lifestyle and you know, tax-free living, etc., it definitely isn't the most difficult sell in the world, but it is something that you do need to really emphasize, that it is such a huge move for candidates, because it's very easy to apply on LinkedIn and just click a button, but it's just to kind of know exactly what they're getting themselves into, be it, you know, like the island lifestyle, etc. So yeah, I think research is the biggest thing I encourage people to do, and yeah, just send them the videos, send them the links from there, and
it sells itself.
Yeah.
I fondly remember actually having calls with candidates, and back in my day when I started out in recruitment, and we didn't have such great resources online. There wasn't much video content and all the rest of it. I remember quite a common obstacle that I encountered was simply that people thought it was too good to be true. Here's this guy saying, you know, you should move around the world to the Cayman Islands, and there's no tax, and it's a great lifestyle, and people were just like, what's the catch? This can't be true. And you know, there are probably tens of thousands of people around the world now still thinking that there must have been a catch, and here I am 19 years after I moved here with KPMG in 2001, still trying to figure out what the catch is.
I try to do my video calls from the beach so they know it's definitely real.
Too many iguanas. That's the catch.
Yeah, that is a major downside if they're hanging around your pool, especially. So Claire, do you have another question?
For Patri, yes, I do indeed. So I know you're the director of one of Cayman's largest financial services firms. What's your take on the availability of talent here, and what do you think the challenges are in that regard, or do you think it's as easy as I make it look sometimes?
I mean, in KPMG, we've got a lot of success stories. So I think what we talked about is sort of, you've seen people that work themselves up and become very successful. One of the guys in my team, for example, he started out just doing vacation work, coming in on one of our programs, and he's one of the most senior members in the team now. And he's from Cayman. So you see people doing very well. On the tech side, I think if I was a young Caymanian, I would actually be very excited, because these days it's so easy to actually skill yourself up. There are very, very high quality courses online that you can do. You can go onto YouTube and teach yourself just about anything. I mean, the majority of what I've learned about digital assets, I've taught myself. There's no university degree or anything like that you can really get to learn about this space. So especially on the tech side of this, I would say it's very, very easy these days. All you need to be constantly learning, because even if you get that degree, your degree is outdated very quickly because the space is moving so quickly. So I think any industrious candidates or anyone in Cayman that's actually taking that initiative, they'll be able to do very well.
I've always wondered how in tech that seems to be a bit of a risk, and especially in speaking to young people about getting into tech as a career. What specifically would you be recommending that people get into? Because tech's such a big landscape. It feels like I've always been, I mean, I'm not a tech recruiter, never have been. I'm a technophile, but I don't understand enough about it to feel comfortable advising anyone on a career in tech. So what would you recommend to a young person when you talk about careers in tech? What should they go into? Software development? If so, what language? I mean, how do you start out, and how do you what's your career track?
So I would say you usually start that out with interest. I mean, a lot of the things I've done is personal projects, where it's a personal project I was working on, figured out, listen, I'm doing this evenings and weekends anyway. You learn a lot there. And then using those skills, you actually find later on you can transfer them over into your work. So, I mean, Python, there's a bunch of really good languages, but the best way for you to learn, because if I'm going to say you have to learn Python, for example, you're just going to try and learn it. But if I say you can build a website that does this, which is something really cool you want to do, then you're really going to start learning about that. And you can do the same thing if someone wants to maybe go into digital marketing. I mean, you see people making careers out of Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube these days. So if you want to do that, maybe start a little Facebook page, see if you can grow it, start learning about SEO, all those kinds of things. So by finding that, really going into something you enjoy, because with this being something that you have to constantly be learning at, you don't want that to be sort of a task for you to do. You have to enjoy doing it and always reading about it.
That's a really interesting perspective. Actually, I'd never thought about it, but just think presenting tech as a vehicle to some other end, but a vehicle is very important to engage with. James, any advice for young people and starting out in a career in tech?
Well, I could talk about the people that seem to do exceptionally well around me are all the people that are very strong in mathematics, because it seems to translate very well across a load parts of the industry. From we're doing large common data services and things like that, and large computing of data, and people just be able to understand that, translate it, visualize the data. Making pretty data is always a popular thing. That's where simple programs like Power BI that you pass on and you teach people, then they can visualize their own data, just really adds value.
Awesome, thanks. I want to give, before we take questions, I want to give the final word to Charlie. I think a lot of people are looking to financial services and construction to drive the economy in the post-COVID period here. Do you think there's an opportunity with this focus on remote working and getting out of traditional offices and hopefully cities? Is it an opportunity for Cayman's tech sector, and what needs to happen? Who needs to do what for us to exploit this if it is an opportunity?
Well, yeah, I do think it's a great opportunity for Cayman, it's for people who would maybe otherwise not consider setting up now that they're working setting up outside of the normal, if you will, in the normal way. Now that they're working remotely, they're looking around and they're saying, well, okay, this could work. And I think, as you said before, well, why are we doing it from here? So I think the opportunity for Cayman is excellent. We look at someone like Ryan, who can do his job from anywhere in the world. Why not Cayman? And that's and the things that have attracted Ryan here. We talked about that earlier. But things that we've found as we've gone along is that we need to go beyond just the great place to live and work, which is a great draw. But we have to establish a very serious tech community here. To pick up on what Claire was saying about sacrificing your career, people want to have both, and if there's not both, then they may just decide to move along. Building a tech community in Cayman that is in and of itself an attraction is I think is a very significant part of the mission for all of us.
Yeah, that's it must be a bit of a tightrope actually, and I know we've had to walk this at times where you don't want to oversell the lifestyle because it kind of takes away from the professionalism and the career success side of it.
Yeah, and we when we speak with clients, I mean very often, like when it's all part of the process. But yes, we do have to convince people that, and often their spouses, that Cayman is a good place. This is where you should move to, and this is where you should live. But what really seems to engage people or get people engaged with the idea of moving to Cayman is when we start talking about how they could get involved in helping to build a globally significant tech hub in Cayman. People get really excited about things like that, and of course that's for all of our benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like Silicon Beach.
Yeah.
Has that name been taken yet?
I've heard it a few times, unfortunately. So,
we can't. Can we trademark that?
But yeah, no. But I mean, it's an excellent. I mean, that is an excellent point. We have to deliver serious career opportunities for people, some people will come no matter what for the sun and the sand. But to kind of really build this into something significant, we need people coming because they're pursuing a career in technology, and this is a great place to do it.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you must have some kind of insight into the possibility. Right now, obviously, the airports are closed, so it's kind of difficult to be talking about bringing a business here. But Are you optimistic that those restrictions are going to be lifted soon, and that people who want to start businesses here in Cayman are going to be able to?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's preventing people right now from being able to come here is the availability of quarantine rooms. The mechanism exists. It's just that people, that there's, provided that you're willing to go through the 14-day quarantine and do all of those sorts of things. But even the people that want to do it right now can't do it because there's a limited number of rooms available. So it's a challenge that we're dealing with, but I'm very optimistic, especially based on the things that I've been hearing and the conversations I've been having with people, that the government is working very, very hard to put a solution in place that's going to allow, people to start coming and going, not freely, but more freely than they are now. I think there's a recognition that, like full-on tourism is not coming back probably this year. But if we can start getting some of the higher end tourism, people who either, have houses here and that sort of thing, we get those people coming and going again, and we can get the business travel started again. Then that could be a significant part of what helps the economy recover.
Yeah, it's a great way to use the room stock. And I've always thought, everyone understands the economic benefits of tourism and having tourists continually come here. And if your typical tourist comes here for 1 week in terms of overnight tourists, what's really the difference between if you're able to attract someone who currently works from home and you have them living here all year round, really it's just the same as having 52 tourists who each stay here for 1 week at a time. And they don't take up they don't put anywhere near as much pressure on the infrastructure because they're not driving around and all the rest of it.
And of course they bring their own job, which is so like you say, they're like a tourist that's here 52 weeks of the year. Yeah.
Claire, any questions from the audience for the panel?
I do have some questions actually. So thank you so much, guys, to all of you. It's been so insightful, and there seems to be a lot of interest. I've had actually quite a few questions come in. So we may not be able to address everything right now. Anything that's not addressed, we will email it out to all viewers afterwards. But the first question is for Petri actually. And so it says, I noticed that companies on the islands are focused largely on IT infrastructure, but not in data analytics yet. So do you believe that there is a big demand in the AI, machine learning and data science field? And if yes, how do we convince businesses to apply these new technologies better to optimize their strategies and operations?
Yep. So, I mean, this is something we're busy looking at the moment. We've got a data scientist. I think one of the challenges at the moment is the actual data. Lots of companies, when you actually look at them, the data underlying isn't that great. And because they haven't been forced to develop, they haven't developed the systems, etc., to implement, go into the cloud, be able to really access their data, all those kinds of things. I think COVID might actually be one of the things that forces companies to modernize, because when the company modernizes, then you have that data that you can start using. And you can actually then get a lot of value out of that. I mean, we're all busy seeing what AI can do in our personal lives with recommendations and voice recognition, etc. If you've got that in a company, it's great. The one thing I'm expecting to see is lots of companies starting to use that data also just to monitor employees. Because if you're running a completely remote company, you want to maybe just have a dashboard, see what's going on in one view, which makes it a lot easier and just gives you that comfort.
Maybe we can take that up offline after this conversation, Petri.
Sure.
Go on. Claire, carry on. Sorry.
Great. Thank you. So Ryan, the next question is actually for you. So how do you think organizations here in Cayman can benefit from using Brave software, ads, or blockchain development?
So we're not a blockchain development company as such. We are a web browser. So I think the barrier to entry is very low, very, very low. All you have to do is hit the App Store or go to brave.com and download the browser. I think our pitch to organizations is actually quite low. I don't think there is a whole lot of enticing stuff for orgs. But on a personal user-to-user level, I would suggest using it if you value your privacy and if you want to browse the web without being tracked. But from an organizational perspective, I don't think there's a huge selling point, especially around blockchain.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Another question for Petri, actually. So is moving away from SWIFT also motivating you to stay out of the US financial monitoring?
That's
I don't know if
an
that's a
interesting
contentious
one.
question or not.
Yeah, I think the specific item I referred to when you read the article, they were saying it's because of cost and speed benefits. I don't know if it might be motivated by that. I mean, certain foreign jurisdictions are talking about creating alternatives to SWIFT, etc. So, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what their motivations were. From reading through it, it was more a cost benefit as well as a speed benefit they were after.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm just having a look here through the questions. We have quite a few, as I said, so I'm just trying to work my way through them. So this question, whoever thinks most appropriate to answer this one. So it's not aimed at anyone specifically, but which companies through going through organizational change or replacing legacy systems, do you think organizations will go involved? Okay, actually, yeah, we'll leave that question for the moment, and we'll come back to it afterwards, if that's okay. So I think for the moment, all questions. Anything else? I think we are almost running out of time. So any other questions, I'll send them over to panelists, and you guys can answer them, and we'll send them across then to all viewers.
Perfect. All right. Well, it seems like a great place to leave it. We're right on time. So I want to just finish up by thanking all of our panelists, Charlie Kirkconnell, Petri Basson, Ryan Watson, and James Packer, and of course, my wonderful colleague Claire. And will join us again for the next in our series of post-COVID discussions. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a million.
Take care.
Thanks, bye-bye.